Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to bring you the first series of the Playbook of North America. This is a unique initiative of ACMA's Pillar 4 on startups and strategic partnerships. ACMA's Pillar 4 has been set up to help ACMA members to explore new opportunities beyond the traditional and enhance their capabilities through technical tie-ups, joint ventures, partnerships, mergers and acquisitions to build affordable, innovative, technological competencies for staying relevant for future growth. With active support from the membership, Pillar 4 could launch unique initiatives like the Auto Technology Partnership Summit, Expo, Leadership Series sessions, Capital Raise Program, Auto and Mobility Startup Initiative, to name just a few, which have greatly benefited the members and encouraged them to look for new horizons. Based on the success of some of these initiatives, we will shortly launch the ACMA Mentorship Program, a pilot project which will help small and medium enterprises members in scaling up processes and get a directional support from leading Tier 1 companies and industry experts, which will help them to clarify doubts with respect to areas like JVs, technical alliances, M&A, export competitiveness, and help them graduate to the next level. Today's discussion will help document members experience both successes and failures on JVs and technical collaboration acquisitions, both domestic and international. It would also help document a basic understanding of different geographies and cultural sensitivities. This initiative will help further us in developing the right framework for ACMA Mentorship Program. I am sure that members will immensely benefit through the above initiatives. I now invite Ms. Ashbina Zaveri, Vice Chairman and Managing Director at NRB Bearings Limited, who is leading the Playbook Directory Initiative for Pillar 4, to update the members on the same.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank Anjali, because it's indeed very exciting for me, and I'm truly delighted that our idea of bringing out a Playbook directory, both physical and virtual, is finally now becoming a reality. It is indeed my pleasure to bring to you the Playbook directory. I have always been fascinated with different cultures, and I love traveling for business and observing the cultural differences in terms of how business is conducted in different geographies. When I first suggested that this becomes a formal and ongoing initiative through which we can share the learning of some ACMA members who actually went to different countries before others, I was enthusiastically encouraged by our chairperson, Anjali Singh. Under her guidance, Pillar 4 has grown from strength to strength. I thank ACMA for trusting me and supporting me so wholeheartedly on this project. And I thank my core committee members, Nishit, Lakshmi, Vivek, Aditya Ganesh, and Mr. Sunil Kaul, for their many, many ideas and for the contribution, and most of all, for the energy that they brought to this initiative. It would not have been possible without their support and the support of the Secretariat, specifically Amit and Anjali Nair. As part of this initiative, an e-book will be unveiled, which contains a valuable database on members who have joint ventures and a footprint in different parts of the world. Part 2 consists of a series of videos on members' experiences in JVs, on technology agreements, on acquisitions, collaborations, and greenfield ventures, domestic and international. It will document their experiences in setting up operations in various geographies and learning, most of all, they are learning, so it can serve as a guide to other companies who want to venture into those regions. We hope this will become a guidebook and give a basic understanding of how to conduct business, how to grow using all these different platforms that Pillar 4 has been highlighting. Also, an essential do's and don'ts, a gist of the cultural sensitivities, most of all, in an audio-visual format that is engaging and user-friendly. Today's panel discussion kickstarts the audio-visual series. As a core committee, we felt that an engaging panel discussion on each geography would bring with it different perspectives in a very interesting format. We will cover many of the questions that members have in mind when planning such a foray. After seeking input from many members, we decided that our focus would be the strategic plan and intent of your companies. What was the strategic plan? What was the intent of the companies that are sharing their learning? Why a particular type of partnership was chosen by them? How the decision-making process actually played out? What were the thoughts behind the selection of the partnerships in the region where the initiative was based? We will also deep dive into the operational plans. How did they take the plunge? What was the cultural context? The sensitivities, how were they navigated, and beyond, like we did at NRB, to actually use the strength of that culture to change our parent company. What permanent impact did that have on your company and the growth possibilities before it? We will include a small do's and don'ts statement. In particular, how can we learn from the mistakes of other members and leverage their success for our success? The critical success factors we speak about will include the ability to see how the business will be in future. For example, in the case of NRB, we went into Thailand because we saw the FTA as a great opportunity and not a threat. Likewise, you must assess for your own company what are the current and likely future pain areas of your customers. What will your future customers be? Why will this decision help you serve your customers better and grow your business and grow profitably? What are the changes that will challenge you in manufacturing technology, demographics? What are the changing aspirations of the next generation? What are the public policy and the environmental issues that will make a huge difference? How will your company prioritize the actions to be taken? How will you make your company more resilient to face sudden and unforeseen developments? What can we learn from the other members who did not get bogged down, who did not get disheartened, but who converted these threats into amazing opportunities? We plan to cover 5 major geographies for the auto component companies: North America, Central and Eastern Europe, and Western Europe, of course, Southeast Asia, and North Africa. Series 1 commences today. It covers 2 important geographies, North America and Southeast Asia. I do hope that members find this initiative exciting and engaging, and that we meet the purpose that we have in mind, which is to help other companies, particularly the SMEs, to learn from our experiences, be encouraged to go global, to succeed. If that is the outcome, and even if you are encouraged by this first step that we are taking, surely our idea will grow into a movement, and the playbook would have achieved its aim. I take great pleasure in introducing my partner in crime, Kavan Mukhtiar, partner and leader automotive sector at PwC India. He has 25 years of experience advising automotive OEMs and component suppliers across Asia Pacific. His area of expertise is strategy, innovation, operations consulting. Let the show begin. Welcome.
Thank you, Harshbina. We will start with Playbook Series 1 on North America today. North America is the largest vehicle market in terms of sales and production. 70% of the North American part production are targeted to OEMs, and remaining 30% is for genuine dealers and distributors, forming a massive market of over US dollars 350 billion. North America is the largest export market for India, comprising nearly of 30% of its auto production, from which, however, forms 5% of the total imports made by North America. The United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement is the most comprehensive trade agreement, focusing on localization and encourage automakers and suppliers to set up greenfield or brownfield projects in the United States. Furthermore, the need for diversification from China will open up many avenues for Indian companies. With numerous small companies under distress, with AMP up acquisition opportunities for Indian players providing advanced technology sources. However, Typical risks and challenges like product liability and cross cultural differences will have to be ironed out. Through today's talk, we will try to cover all these learnings and experiences from some of our seasoned players who've already ventured forth. Before we dive into this discussion, I take great pleasure in introducing our esteemed panelists for today and what areas they'll be focusing upon. Our moderator for today, Mr. Kavan Mukhtar from PwC, doesn't need much of an introduction. Thank you, Kavan, for always supporting us. Specializes in automotive strategy and operations. Kavan is also PwC's India Automotive Sector Head and is responsible for shaping the vision and strategy for this sector for PwC. PwC has been engaged by ACMA as its knowledge partner yet again for this year and is also spearheading the ACMA Mobility Startup Initiative. Thank you, Kavan, for agreeing to moderate this session today. Mr. Arvind Goyal is the MD and CEO of Tata Autocomp Systems Limited, a leading global auto component conglomerate. With his passion for automotive technology, he's been serving the automotive industry for 4 decades. He is also, in his long career of Tata Autocorp, has had several leadership positions. Over the years, he's won several awards for his contribution to the auto industry. In today's discussion, Mr. Goyal will be focusing on Taco's successful JVs with US companies as well as NAFTA perspective. Thank you, sir, for being here. Mr. Nitash Bera, Executive Director, Business Development Strategy at RSB Transmissions Limited, is a young and dynamic leader. He has over 16 years of rich experience of leadership roles in auto component industry, spanning from the shop floor practices, production, business development, and especially in greenfield projects, to turnaround of manufacturing plants. Today, Nishit will be speaking about his experiences of setting up brownfield operation in Mexico. Truly a unique experience. We have Mr. Tarun Lamba, CEO at Imperial Auto Industries, has worked for over 2 decades in the family business and has been involved while the company grew in sales from $3 billion US to $250 million in this period. He is a qualified polymer engineer, and Tarun will talk to us about his greenfield project set up in North America for the OEM customers there. Then we have Mr. Vishal Elani. He's the managing director of the V3 group of companies, which has a global presence in the field of automotive electronics and includes Indication Instruments Limited India, V3 Electronics USA, and V3 Technology UK. He's a member of the Indian Angel Network and has been angel investing for the last 5 to 6 years. Vishal will today provide us an SME perspective of entering JV and partnerships for leveraging technology in business. Truly something absolutely related to what we're discussing today. I also take this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Anjali Singh, the Executive Chairperson of Anand Group and the Chairperson of its Executive Board. As some of you may know, the Anand Group is a conglomerate based of many joint venture partners that span much of the globe. I look forward to sharing some of our experiences here with you today. Kavan, may I now invite you to formally start the panel discussion? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Anjali. And, it's great honor and privilege to be on this panel. And it's a very, very interesting topic. Like you rightly mentioned, North America is one of the largest automotive markets in the world. And it presents a lot of interesting opportunities. At the same time, there are challenges of managing risks that are involved in penetrating this market. So let me first invite Mr. Vishal Lalani to share his views. Vishal, welcome to the panel, and I would like to begin by, requesting you to describe, what really is your presence in North America, and if you could please, share your perspective and experience, and how did you set up the organization, and how did you go about identifying and really implementing on these opportunities. Over to you, Vishal.
Thanks, Kavan, and I'm privileged to be a part of this panel. Very quickly, our US operations, we have a manufacturing, design, full, complete facility in Florida. It's about 85 people, and we hope to do about $20 million in sales this year. So, and it contributes to about, I would say, 40% of our group sales and almost half of our profits. So clearly, it's something that's been a success as I see it. When I talk about my US, I'll just take a step back and not start with this acquisition, but from our initial entry into the US market. We I did my master's in the US. I'd stayed in the country for about a year and a half, so it was not something very new for me. But I came back in 91, and in 1995, we started taking part in the show at Las Vegas, the SEMA show. So up till 2003, after about 8 years of going there, we had almost nothing to show for it. We would go there every year, develop good customers in Latin America. But if I remember correctly, our sales in the US were like $50,000 at that point. Now the turning point came. My good friend Shekhar, he came to see me in Vegas, and he had been born in India but stays in the US. And he said, "Okay, let's walk about the show." And we went into this customer, US customer. I'd been meeting them every year, and I must confess, my sales capabilities were extremely poor then. Not that it's a big strength for me today, but I'm more of an engineer. So I went there. I said, this company called Clark Brothers. I said, "Hi Tom, how are you? And you know about our company. Come to our booth and stuff." And I wasn't. I thought if he needs any samples, he'll just ask me. And then Shaker goes to him, strikes up a conversation. He he has. I've seen over the years he has excellent sales capabilities. He thinks and talks like an American. And he told him, "Tom, why do you have these crappy Chinese gauges in your stall? Why don't you buy from us?" He said, "Okay, send me samples." It was a shock for me. I'd been going to this guy dressed in my, proper suit, and giving him my catalog, and he had never asked me for samples. And here, Shaker dressed casually, talking casually, and you know, so that night we sat down, and Shaker was looking to do something new. So he decided to become my distributor in the US. So this was 2003 to 2009, and I made several trips as a manufacturer. Shaker didn't know the product originally, and we took a lot of road trips. Somehow the timing was right. There was a lot of interest in the Indian market, Indian companies. So we got meetings easily, people, a lot of interest. And of course, it was not very big companies. We made, by 2009, we had started doing almost $1 million. It's about 20 times sales growth. Just by having our own office, warehouse, somebody the Americans could just pick up and call. Um, Around 2008, there was this customer we had, Teleflex, and they let the engineering manager go, Bob Shanebrook. And we engaged him to come and help us consult. He was coming 6 times a year, spending 12 weeks. Uh, and then what happened was Teleflex decided to shut their instruments division, who was a customer. And Shaker was very keen we buy it out. Remember, this was 2009. So it was the world going down, financial crisis. I was extremely reluctant, but finally, I guess I decided to go ahead, and we made an offer, and they they accepted our offer out of multiple bidders. We heard of this quite accidentally through a third person, not even Bob Shanebrook, and we didn't pay too much money. We picked up all their liabilities. They had 110 people, and of course the business had gone down. So we let about 50% go. We hired 55 people, and we did an asset purchase in the US. You never know what kind of liabilities these companies have. So the best thing suggested to us, we bought the assets, we formed a new company. It took, I think, 5 minutes to form a new company. We created an LLC, because you don't want to pay taxes twice. Of course, that depends on what your long-term goals are. In an LLC, you'll end up paying taxes every year if you're making a profit. But if you form a corporation, you'll pay them only when you declare a dividend. We formed it in Florida. I did it in my individual name because there's no state income tax in Florida. Some states have 7.5, 10. I think California has 12.5. So that was the choice we made. Uh, and I'll so this is how the journey happened, how we picked up the company, how we formed it, and some of the risks were, uh, I think we lost a few customers because Teleflex had declared to customers they're shutting down the company, and I think we took some losses for a few years. There was a risk of trust, which I now see. The employees trusting us, and Bob Shanebrook played a very valuable role because he knew me. He'd been coming here. And of course, one of the biggest risks was I had no local knowledge of the US. But so Shaker stays in the US. That was a big, big help. So I'll stop here for now and give it back to you, Kavan.
So very interesting, Vishal. So one couple of takeaways that I'd like to highlight is getting the right team in place, and like you gave a couple of names of partnerships that you built with your friend, as well as build that network with a local person. So brought in that local knowledge. So clearly that was one key learning. The other important point that you made was about always looking at an asset purchase rather than buying over the whole company. While it may or may not be possible in every case, but certainly something that ACMA members should look at, because you never know what kind of liabilities we are buying into. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But moving forward, walk us through what really were some of the things that you actually looked at, and what were your challenges in scaling up the business from what you acquired in 2008-9 into what it is today. So walk us through that journey of growth, Vishal.
Yeah, there were, I think, first 5, 6, 7 years were pretty tough, and the company who sold the company sold it for a reason. They were not interested, so they had stopped investing in product development. They didn't even have the sales were looked after by corporate, so the customer relationships had gone down. So this was a dying company. I think that was one of the biggest challenges. So also, the other thing is, when you do an asset purchase, there's no working capital, so you have to infuse your own working capital. So we had to put in money in the working capital, product development, building that trust again with customers. Uh, we had an ERP system which was going obsolete. We set up a new ERP system, ERP-LN, which is a big, expensive, and difficult to install software. And then a financial controller left in the middle of that. He got a better opportunity. Um, when the previous owners they sold the company, uh, they shipped out a lot of. They gave us all the inventory for free, all the raw material and components. But there was a 1.5 month time between the time we signed the deal and the time we uh, took over the assets, and they shipped out a lot of product to customers. So suddenly we were very light on orders when we began. Um, Another problem that happened was there was a theft of a purchase manager. Believe it or not, it happens in the US too. He, uh, as the new ERP was being set, he stole a lot of our stuff, sold it on eBay, about $150,000 worth, and then left the company before we caught him. So it was, I think, one problem after the other for the first few years till we really got things smoothened out. Yeah, it was a huge, large number of small things, I would say. And Just one more thing I'll add about the company, that we did not send anyone from India except for one person. Today we had 85 people, so there's only one engineering manager who's gone there. All our staff and workers there are local. So I think that is something I would like to say, that that helped us a lot. You know, just sticking with the local people there, we were able to overcome all the challenges. So yeah, back to you, Kaman.
Yeah. Yeah, my question was, Vishal, what are some of the learnings you would like to share with an SME from India who wants to start on the North America journey now, in terms of the opportunities, and more importantly, what are some of the due diligences that they should do?
Okay. Yeah, I'll start with the due diligences. I think being an SME brings its challenges. You cannot, I assume the SMEs, other SMEs will not make a huge acquisition. They will not take that risk. And if the acquisition is not very big, you don't want to spend too much money on due diligence. You'll have to take a little bit of leap of faith. You'll, of course, do diligence of the financials. Uh, you'll go look at the assets. Uh, I guess the one advantage in a country like the US, it's a very litigious society, and courts give quick results. So normally, what people give you in writing, the staff or managers, they will not lie because they can go to jail for that. So you can trust them much more. So you can look at the statements. You'll have to, of course, go see the assets, what condition they are in. Uh, the customer relationships. Customers may be on the verge of walking away. What if you lose a big customer? So you'll have to definitely verify that. Uh, Employees leaving. You have to talk to all the key employees, and there's no way of ensuring that you can lock an employee into an agreement. You just can't. I don't know if you can do that in India, but definitely not in the US. So make sure you have a good rapport with them, talk to them, understand where they are, how likely they are to leave. Liabilities, as I said, the company can have a lot of liabilities. Uh, if you do an asset purchase, you take some of that away. But if you're forced to buy a company, make sure you understand the liabilities and protect yourself. Hire a good lawyer. Make sure you protect yourself against any unforeseen liabilities. What are the agreements you have with your customers? Okay. So all agreements with customers, with suppliers. Do you have any patents? Uh, is there any chance of infringing on patents? What are the tax implications of uh, uh, of your takeover? Just consider what is the best way to structure it, like we did in LLC. Make sure you have a good tax consultant there, a good legal advisor, and of course your business plan. So when we went in, we thought we will go and we are Indians. We'll take the cost out. We'll move production to India and just do it at lower cost. But it didn't turn out that way. And one of the big even so the employees even today after 12 years are a little bit nervous that the owners are Indian. And that tiny bit of fear, even if they've seen we've grown the company, the tiny bit of worry is already always there. So my advice is, do not look at cutting costs out. Do an acquisition for growth, and you will be able to take some costs out. Do it in a way that you don't have to remove any employees. Try to grow the business. We did it from the back end. So we moved our suppliers. We started buying components from India. It's an assembly. We do a lot of assembly in the US. Uh, so make sure you have a good business plan. Uh, we also were able to get a lot of technology back. In fact, our India sales would have been, maybe we would have lost a lot of BS6 opportunities if we had not got the technology. So yeah, I think those are some of the things I can think of.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Vishal. And if time permits, I'll come back to you with one more round of questions. But at this stage, let me move to you, Nishit. Of course, you have a large presence, not just in the US, but in Mexico as well. So, may I request you to first describe what really is your operation in North America? And what was your rationale for the brownfield operations that you set up there? Over to you, Nishit.
Thank you. Thank you, Kavan, for this question and this opportunity to be a part of this playbook. And I'm really happy to share RSV's experience towards NA, specifically towards the brownfield opportunities which we took. I'll take back the whole purpose or the objective of us doing a brownfield expansion in the US, and that would be around 2005, 2006. We were having exports to US, but we quickly realized scaling it was getting little difficult for us. And around that time, we got an opportunity for a brownfield acquisition, which we saw, which was much in line with the kind of products and the capabilities which we had. And we went ahead and took that. One of the key objective of doing that was acquiring customers and businesses over there. We we succeeded in the beginning in scaling and growing it. But then we also saw two cycles of downturn, uh, which our US operations experienced. We sustained that, and the US operation expanded and set up a plant in Mexico, as our customers were also setting up bases in Mexico. Hence, we also expanded to Mexico. Over to you, Kavan.
Thanks. So let's go a little bit deeper. I think this is indeed a good model, and I'm sure Tarun will share a little bit more about this as well. That in some sense, US is also a base not just for the US market, which in itself is pretty big, but with a lot of the manufacturing moving to Mexico as well as to maybe even Canada. There are more opportunities as well. Share with us a little bit about the challenges that you faced while building the business, because I'm sure this was probably the first time you were operating in US as well. So, what were some of the challenges, and what would you like to share with the ACMA community as some of the learnings that you had?
I think coming straight to the point of challenges, we had a plan in our head, like the way we would go ahead, integrate the US operations with our India operations, what kind of team we will put over there. So we had a plan while we were doing the due diligence. We already had a plan of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. But one of the key challenges which we observed early on is the kind of flexibility of the team in environments which needed quick changes. So, in case, for example, if there was any change which was happening in customer expectations or customer requirement, the flexibility of the US team to absorb that, realign, and start in the way the customer was expecting, we found that a little more rigid compared to the way we behave and function over here. So that was one of the challenges which I feel we faced that. Second challenge was which came from a banking perspective. Mm, though the had good banking relationship, But the moment a bigger organization takes over a company in US, the expectation of the banks in terms of providing securities for further enhancement of the debts increase. And we had a little tough time to address to those, because at the same time we have to look at our India balance sheets and Indian board. How do we keep it under check? So I would say that in the manpower point and the management point, the flexibility, and in the second challenge was managing the expectation when a big organization comes into the picture.
Right. So I think clearly you highlighted the cultural difference between our outlook of being very customer focused and flexible, but you may not get the same kind of response from the US company. So would request you to dig a little bit deeper into what are some of these cultural differences that an Indian company should be aware of when they are trying to do business with the US or North America in general.
Like I said, when we took over that company, we sent only couple of senior leaders over there, except for the head and one of the person who was with him. Most of them were Americans, and the production and including the engineering and everybody was an American uh, uh, citizens over there, and they were Americans. Now we had a plan of growth where we were looking at acquiring customers, and we were also looking at acquiring new businesses. And when we started implementing that, we started realizing the team was not very conducive towards experimenting or doing business, which other than what they have been doing for the last 20, 30 years for which the company was operating. And that's where we had to bring in little changes and tweaks in the team to address to this expectation of ours. Most expectation from the team was that here is a company which has come to buy them out, will provide a nice, sustainable financial strength to the organization, and they can continue to do how they were doing businesses. So that's one challenge which made us replan our approach on how to go ahead and implement our growth strategy in US.
Yeah. So I think those are excellent points, Nishit. But tell me a little bit further on, other than the cultural differences, how did you try to, cross leverage the benefit of, working between India and the US? Did you integrate this operation at the back end, like what, Vishal was mentioning? Share with us some more operational changes that you may have made in making the company profitable.
So I'll take a leaf out of Mr. Lalani's, and I'll be candid enough to accept that we also believe that you can do some cost leveraging when you are going to work with the US, and we will be able to grow it far faster and exponentially if we do that. Needless to say, everybody was aware the cost of production in India was cheaper than the cost of production in US. But that was our secondary thought, and our primary was towards growth. But it's actually very early in our integration and growth, we realized the customers are not looking for cost the way we were thinking. We were expecting that to be as a priority number one, but what they were looking more was to have an American face which can give them comfort, and in lot many cases de-risk them from lot of challenges they can face from getting those products from overseas. For example, managing the supply chain, product liability, addressing to their changing needs, or any new platforms has to be brought. It's at that point of time we started investing more for business development, specifically towards our engineering capabilities, where we were able to provide comfort to the customer that here is a company who's just not interested in selling to you, but here is a company who is ready to give you solutions, and we are going to back it up with a reliable product so that you won't be in a position where you have to actually seek support from somebody from overseas. When the team is over here, right in America, you can pick up a call and ask them to visit you. I think that's the kind of approach which gave comfort to our customer, and that's when we started observing that the business was on a little more smoother track of expansion.
Excellent, excellent. I think those are great learnings that you shared, Nishit. And then, like you said, you made the US business healthy and used that as an entry point into Mexico. So, share with us, how did that opportunity come about? And of course, Mexico is a highly complex market. So, how did you go about making that decision?
Kavan, again, I'll be candid. I'll not take the entire credit of Mexico on us. A lot of credit also has to go towards our customer, who, as our relationship was growing stronger and we were in a very sustained manner able to address to their needs, both in terms of product as well as product reliability and quality. And it's when they started setting up base, they threw this opportunity of for us come to Mexico and set up a base. And that's where we took that opportunity, took that challenge, and we set up a operation in Mexico, wherein both the US and the Indian team collaborated in forming the team, including the entire processes, plant, everything was done. And surprisingly, my Mexico plant is growing far faster and in a much more healthier way now than my US plant right now. Owen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nishit. And those are great, very very useful pieces of insights. And hopefully, if time permits, I'll come back to you with one more question. But let me now move to Mr. Tarun Lamba. Mr. Lamba, you've had, as we were discussing earlier, you've had a long journey working in the US, and you have a warehouse presence there, a direct presence there right now. So share with us how this came about, and what were some of the early stage learnings. Share with us the story of your expansion in the US.
So, thank you so much, Kavan, and thanks to ACMA for having me on this panel. And again, like everyone has been very candid, I'll be very honest also. So our presence in North America happened only because of our customers. Frankly, we we were very customer oriented, and Cummins happened to be our first global customer in North America. I mean, and that is because we were working with Cummins in India. I think Cummins is the one who took us there first in 2001, 2002 time frame, and that's how we got our first kind of taste of North America. It wasn't easy. I mean, we went through the learning curve. We went back and forth a number of times, but we soon realized that this was the market that if we had to be in the auto component space, it was very important for us to be. It was very important for us to be a part of this component manufacturing. One reason was because almost all the customers that we were working with in India, a lot of them had global presences, and for us to be a supplier to them, either gave us the opportunity to be a global supplier to them, or it also gave opportunity to their global suppliers to be in India. So I think that pressure on us was a most important thing for us, these components for them in North America. We went through the usual drill. We did development. We found a third party warehousing partner first. Uh, and as the business grew from 2003, literally from zero to this year, we ended up making our own warehouse. And by 2016, we had started some assembly lines ourselves, just to be having a better engagement with our customer base there. And most of these things happened in direct discussions with our customers. So we have followed what they expected us to do. Realized that that was not the right place for us. We went to Indianapolis, which was closer to our largest market, it was called the Crossroads of America. We also made some mistakes in the automotive space where we feel we bit more than what we could chew. And this is my advice to anybody who's trying to do business with North America, that sometimes large volumes come very easy, and it's very important for us to be aware that we need to be ready for it. And we lost something in that process, and then gradually rebuilt it to gain our position. So I think right now we have a mix of a little bit of manufacturing there and some warehousing in North America. That's where we are today, Kavan.
Yeah. So interestingly, you set up a warehouse in the US, and like you mentioned, you make sure that there is synergy between the India operations and this warehouse, and you work together and offer the right kind of combination to your customers. So share with us a little bit further about how do you really manage the supply chain, and how does that become almost like a differentiator with respect to your competitors?
So, so the norms of doing business in North America, we realized, was that whatever we did was ex North America. So in our case, it was ex Indianapolis. Almost any customer in North America, and not just North America, in Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, they would pick parts from our warehouse, which was kind of very convenient. So by being in North America, you were also having access to other markets, and very conveniently. But the key was to have an ex-US pricing. So now everything else is back end. Now you are competing at par with anybody else in the world. So where you could be competing with a Chinese supplier, you could be competing with a Brazilian manufacturer, or a Mexican manufacturer, or even a local North American supplier. It all boils down to your supply chain ability, and how quickly can you develop parts, how good you make them, how competitive you are. And if you can turn around parts as quickly as their North American supplier, you will keep gaining, you will keep winning, more and more business. This has been our experience, and find it. I mean, and very honestly, that North America is probably the most fair and faceless, business interface that we have with any other, place in the world. And as long as you tick all the boxes, your delivery is right, your quality is right, your pricing is right, you will keep winning business. So I think that was the basis of our building business in North America.
But can you share a little more detail? What do you mean by managing your supply chain right? Is it more about sourcing your components from best cost countries, or what exactly should one do to be successful in that market?
So, like I said, initially, when we started doing business in North America, it was about giving them a cost advantage. They would look at India as a low cost country. So the reason for them to look for Indian suppliers was to get some cost savings. I think it's changed a little bit now. I feel that once you are in that supply chain, it's about being competitive, and it's about being able to pass on the best benefits to them in terms of service and delivery. So when I say supply chain management, I mean, if they want prototypes in 2 weeks, you should be able to give prototypes in 2 weeks. If they want, a low volume production, maybe we should do it in North America itself, because the cost of, producing, shipping, and holding those goods in North America might be too much. If they want a high volume part where they have good visibility and continuity, it might be better to make in India and then ship to North America. So it's about giving the customer the best solution, the best option, to choose from, and still making sure that you are better than, your counterparts who are supplying from China or Brazil or Mexico.
Great points, Tarunji. I think moving forward a little bit, one of the big things that one hears quite often is compliance. Then the burden of compliance in the US and not knowing all the laws, the risk that one faces. But what has been your experience, or how did you deal with this liabilities coming out of product warranty as well as legal compliance to the local laws?
I think the US liabilities and compliances is made to look like a little bit of a scary thing. In our experience, over the last 17-18 years of doing business with North American companies, we haven't come across one case where it is been complicated or it's been threatening to the business because of something that went wrong. I think they are as good or bad a customer as anywhere else in the world. Well, there are agreements, so we need to be very careful that we draft out and sign up our agreements very carefully. We don't just blindly sign something which could put us at risk at a later date. So even if something is written and you have a long-term relationship, you build a good relationship with a customer, you can find a way of resolving those issues without getting into legalities. I mean, we have never come across a situation where we need to hire a lawyer so far, in North America. And neither has a customer sent us a legal notice for anything that might have happened during a course of our doing business. So I think it's important for us to just make sure that we protect ourselves. Nowadays, you can buy insurances, you can buy a recall insurance, you can buy a product liability insurance. You can protect yourself against those risks. At the same time, you can negotiate your contracts better. For example, I'll just give you an example that when we do a warranty agreement, sometimes the customer wants us to sign on a product liability. And you can say, okay, we will give you product liability, but we will limit it to a certain amount. So just put up a ceiling on it, so that you can get it covered. Otherwise, if you don't have a ceiling on it, you can't buy an insurance. So for example, we negotiate a ceiling which could be like 10% of our last year's revenue. So I'm willing to put at risk a certain amount, but not like an open-ended liability agreement. So not that we've had to use this, but I think these are the things which will give you more confidence doing business. And I think they are as fair as easy as anywhere else in the world. If I may say, they're actually easier and more fair.
Thanks, Tarunji. There is the US Mexico Canada agreement that is now replaced NAFTA. What has the experience been so far? Do you see new opportunities coming in by virtue of this agreement, and anything you would like to share on this area, please?
So that's a challenge where gradually the North American produced content has to go up in any product that is being sold into North America. So by 2027, I understand, as per the USMCA agreement, it has to be 70% produced within North America. So the pressure on manufacturing product locally will continue to grow, and the customers will choose depending on what's more value or cost saving for them to put in that last 30%. So there will be I mean, if you are really growing your business in North America and you want to be there a long term, I it is important for us to have our feet on the ground there. It's very important for us to be engaged as a local supplier rather than being just a low cost country supplier. Warehousing gradually will move into manufacturing as per customer demands and as things move in the USMCA law. Also, we'll need to protect ourselves against currencies. Right now it's been very favorable. Last few years we have had a good run with the dollar very favorably. But what if it started to move in the opposite direction? So some local manufacturing will act as a clear insurance to do business in North America, especially because the volumes that we deal with in North America are much larger. They are a consumer economy, and we are seeing the variability is growing. Last year or two has been very challenging. It's very unlike US. About 2 years back, we could see clear visibility on what is required 6 months from now, and they would rarely change it. They were very consistent with their volumes. But in the last 1.5 years, it's all gone haywire. I mean, it's far more volatile. So having that little manufacturing will help de-risk all these factors. So not just USMCA laws, but I think ultimately it will boil down to saving your business in North America by being closer to the customer there.
Thank you. How about expansion? And you did say that the warehouse asset that you have gives you ability to collaborate with other Indian companies as well. So, any thoughts on how would that pan out, and what are the opportunities you are seeing in this area?
So right now, we see that the volatility that I just talked about, that there is a huge fluctuation in demand in North America. There are volumes going up suddenly in the truck and off highway segment, and passenger car is kind of struggling because of the chip shortage. So there are both cases where OEMs are struggling because the volumes are going down, and they are struggling because their volumes going up. I think that opens a lot of opportunities. We have seen more opportunity in the last 1.5 year than ever before. We are literally looking at doubling our export over the next couple of years because of the new opportunities, the new programs, the new customers that we are getting engaged with. Also, at the same time, we see it's the supply chain that we have managed well. So we see a lot of other component requirements which come through us, which could be smaller MSMEs, your tier 2, and maybe those component manufacturers in India don't have that exposure to work with the North American customer. They may be capable of making a good part, but may not be ready to handle a supply chain which will meet their requirements in terms of delivery, in terms of development cycles, in terms of initial protos approvals, and fit checks and all those things. So I think we see a lot of opportunity for ourselves as an aggregator also. Because we deal with a lot of supplier base, we feel there could be a channel which a lot of smaller companies could benefit from, and even the OEMs that we work with could benefit, because once you win their confidence that you have been able to deliver to their requirements, you understand their language, you understand their EDIs, you understand what kind of a visibility they have, then it's important to put that to use. So that data and that engagement becomes valuable, and we realize that we are seeing a lot of benefits as byproducts, where they want us to develop some other components which may not be in our current scope, but will help them meet up these challenges, not just bring about a low cost solution, but also meet up their challenges with this changing and volatile demand. So we see a huge opportunity, but a lot of aggregation and consolidation will need to be happening with the smaller companies in India. So we are, as a matter of fact, setting up a team to kind of handle this kind of a opportunity and make sure we can convert some of it.
Well, I guess that's what Pillar 4 strategic partnerships is all about, working together as a community and growing together. So, thank you very much, Mr. Tarun Lamba, for your comments. And I will come back to you towards the end. But let me now invite Mr. Arvind Goyal of TACO to share his perspective. Mr. Goyal, thank you very much for joining in. My request to you would be to please share, your experience with respect to, the North American market. And I believe you do have a few JVs there. So, over to you. What really are the experiences when you set up this JV? How did you identify these opportunities, and how did you, go about executing it?
Oh, we have North American partners with whom we have JVs in India. We don't have a JV in North America. We have a fully owned company in North America, which came via an acquisition, and where we were looking for a particular technology, and it was more for a technology hunt, which landed up buying that company. And we wanted to look at technology for the electric truck cooling and all that, because in India we knew the truck would take a lot of time for coming into electric. The passenger cars may come earlier, but we as a group want to take a lead even in truck. Uh, so that is the reason we acquired that company, and we have a plant both in Mexico and in North America, and handling most virtually every truck OEM is our customer there.
So, how about Mr. Tarun Lamba mentioned about the USMCA agreement, and any thoughts on that? Do you think that that presents more opportunities for you? Like you said, you have a subsidiary there. What is your take on that from a ACMA member standpoint? Should they look at the USMCA as a threat or an opportunity?
No, it's certainly an opportunity, and I personally find doing business in US much easier than doing in Europe, even though we have 100% owned company in Europe as well. And now with this new, which is the NAFTA norms and the US MCL agreements, there is an opportunity to actually produce more in North America, because if you have to send some people from India and hire balanced people from the North America, I find a lot of good talent would easier like to go to North America than to go to our experiences. Even though we have a plant, because you have to make almost 60-70% production in North America, and especially when you are entering into a newer technological field. If you are going for an existing technology, there is enough competition there. However, when you go to a newer technology, you have a level playing field, because somebody else being about advantage of somebody who has a big plant there, because he's also going to have a new technology in itself. So we have decided to concentrate on newer technologies and work in North America. And if you look for, say, electrical, for example, I was talking to a couple of large truck OEMs, not passenger car. They say out of 34 parts into the new technology, 32 they either import from China or from Europe. And only 2 parts are made in North America. So if you select out of balance 32 parts what you want to make or somebody else wants to make, he also is starting a brand new greenfield, you also start a brand new greenfield. So whoever is more innovative, more agile is able to get that business. So certainly the opportunities are opening up with the new laws there. But I do not want to go there for a standard commodity products, uh, casting, forgings, or some plastic parts, etc. Because there are enough suppliers there, and even if you go there, then you have a hard press on margins. So better go into the new technologies. That's what my suggestion would be.
No, great points, sir. Great points. So, moving forward a little bit further into your experience of working in North America and using US as a base to reach out to other countries in the region as well. But how did you balance? I mean, most Indian companies feel that they can do a cost takeout by leveraging their India presence, and then but it's not always that easy, as was Vishal was mentioning earlier as well. So how did you balance this two entities, and how did you get them to work together, the India business with your US business?
See, as far as the India business, what we are doing, we certainly do supply some components out of India, but it is hardly say 4 or 5% or even less than that of their bill of material. What we do in India is we do their back end engineering, and say we employ about 60-70 people for our American company, people who are doing engineering in India. Then we have a shared service with all their HR processes, account processes, and we have added all that out of India, so that saves cost there. And we have on the same SAP platform, the American company also works on India. So we have live data here, and a lot of things are handled out of India. That's how we operate. But I would say 70 or almost 80% plus components we still produce in US.
Yeah, I think that is a clear consensus amongst all the panelists, that you can't just think of moving production to India and to do a cost takeout there. But can you please elaborate a little bit on the cultural differences as well of working with the US or in North America, and what would be your advice to other ACMA members who are looking at getting into North America and doing business there in terms of the cultural sensitivities?
No, I think the North America, we have to be far more careful in dealing means respecting people. Certainly, as a Tata Group, that is to be taught as a part of culture, and it is part of our code of conduct. But I still find many people in India, the way they run operations are a little more aggressive in their way of talking, etc. It doesn't work. And also, I find that some of the normal, jokes which we may make with each other in India is actually not acceptable in United States. And very, very, and sometimes you don't even understand what the hell is going wrong, because it's a normal way of life in India. So one has to be far more careful in the way you speak, and it is always better to tell people to have a far more observation skill earlier before you started, interacting and trying to push people around. And also, United States is not a hierarchical society, and I found that if I send some of the senior guys from the company who have grown over the years, they start thinking they are very big shots when they go there because the company is owned by us, etc. It doesn't work like that. You need to be a very young guy, maybe more knowledgeable than you, so you might as well listen to him. And so one has to go away from the hierarchical business there and work with far more involvement with the right people who are able to operate. And I think United States is that way. I find it's much easier to do all this cultural fit than what I found doing in Sweden or in Poland or in Germany where we have plants. It is far more complicated in Europe, but United States is very, very easy. We have to be a little more careful in how we deal with it.
And what would be your advice to ACMA members, especially MSMEs who are looking at taking advantage of the US opportunity? What are some of the things that they should look at? How should they go about maybe even finding partners? Your thoughts, please.
See, finding partners is basically comes through your connections with the OEMs or your connection with large tier ones. Like if you have connections with large tier ones like Magna or ZF or many other large tier ones operating out of in North America, and or you have direct connection with OEMs depending upon the size of company you want to put in, and it would basically come out of the relationship because the MSME is not going there to put a very large facility. He is going there again to start as an MSME and then grow over there. And so he needs certainly a support or a hand holding or whatever you call from one of these large suppliers, because they would certainly need a lot of small suppliers who supply to them. Also, a lot of us like Anand Group, Anjali is there, and Nishant or whomever, we have joint ventures, and we have so many joint venture partners. So the North American joint venture partners are also looking for smaller suppliers who can help them. So we can also help them connect to them if somebody is very seriously want to go and put a facility. And that's how I would like to approach. And I would not like an MSME to just say, okay, I am very good at something, I'll go and put a plant in North America and I'll be able to find customers. I think better to have an engagement with customers before putting an investment there.
That's a great point. And related question is, do you think there is also, a reverse internationalization in the sense that, with the whole diversification away from China, do you think there are several North American companies that are interested in investing in India?
I think not great, but certainly China plus one policy, most of the world has been working on it. And many of these companies who have high volume production are still not comfortable that India can supply. There are exceptions to Mr. Lamba and few others, not that nothing can be supplied in high volume. But normally they are hesitant. And also the experience of some of our own connection with the large OEMs, even in truck industry, even though they think they should come more to India because of whatever is happening with China. But they found that even during the pandemic, whatever they were buying from India, they had a lot of difficulty. And in pandemic, they had no difficulty still buying from China. Because the plant just got lockdowns and closed down and the people were not able to handle it. Just for example, like Siemens have 23 plants in India, out of which almost 20 are in Maharashtra. and the Maharashtra with a major lockdown, and 3 or 4 of their plants were exporting to Europe and US, and that products were not made in those parts of the world. But after the pandemic happened, they were not able to supply almost for a month and a half. Now, both in their America and German plant, they have decided that 50% of their production they will buy from some other country and not from India. So that is also happening, but also people are exploring to buy more from India, and I do not have much export experience out of India for car industry, but certainly the commercial vehicle industry, the off-road industry, the agriculture tractor industry, the machine tool industry, they have been coming to India and exploring this in a big way. Not big deals have happened, some small deals have happened, certainly, but opportunity is there. One needs to look at it. But some of the large suppliers like Apple and all, they are looking at India as a very, very major source of supplies out of India. And we at Tata's have been completing our plant there for Apple. We have already employed about 28,000 people only for Apple. Like that, I think some large projects will also come in. But lot of engagement is required, and confidence building is required that we are able to supply smoothly to them. But opportunities are coming in, and now again with the further problems which are looking like in China or whatever, power and things like that, I think this will further open up exploring opportunities out of India.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Goyal. Let me move now to Mrs. Anjali Singh. So, Anjali, of course, you lead, the Anand Group, which has so many joint ventures from multinationals from around the world, including from North America. So, my first question to you is about, how do you look at the whole portfolio of your joint venture partners? I mean, how do you go about maybe even selecting them? And more importantly, how do you see the North American joint venture partners and their expectations and behaviors, and maybe even their value system? How different do you think they are from other joint venture partners, especially the Asian ones?
Yeah, thanks, Kavan. So I'll just break that into the two segments of your questions. One, to just give you a bit of a historic perspective, the Anand Group today sits at about 13 joint ventures and 7 technical licenses. So as you can imagine, it's like having 13 children or 13 marriages rather. Not one is the same. Every one is intrinsically different, and every relationship is completely individualistic. So we span obviously from Korea and the East all the way to the US and Europe. And, one unique thing, and I've been hearing the conversation till now, which has been very interesting, is that Anand Group's JVs are from all over the world, but we only operate in India. We as Anand Group do not operate in any global market, and that has been a way that we have found very useful for us to really run it as one Anand in India. Going with that loaded statement, I think historically, starting from the 80s, which when many of our joint ventures took birth, the need for the global partners, I would say, to come to India was high, and yet their understanding or the opening of India was not so easy for them without a JV partner. So obviously, we were well positioned at the time, and I think that was a great launchpad for us when many of them wanted to be here and yet needed a strong partner. At that point, Anand Group's reason for some of the partnerships, or essentially the main reason, was always technology. I think number one, we always went for a very high technology company, sort of state of the art in whatever they were offering. And we went largely for to be in systems and not in components. I think that was the methodology used at the time. Of course, a lot changes as decades go by and business matures, and India has obviously become a very, very exciting market now for everybody, and not the least the North American geography. In that, changes come, and Anand Group also grew to realizing that we may have certain strengths that we've grown ourselves of governance and a highly structured professional organization, which then slowly attracted other nationalities and other JVs, including the East, where I can be honest and say it takes a lot longer to penetrate the East and to form relationships and finally form a partnership. It can even take 5 to 6 years of relationship building before you actually sign a JV agreement. Contrary to, I would say, the United States, where there's no barrier of language, number one. And number two, the cultural differences are much less, and you're able to sit down on the same table and really talk things out and thrash things out and form and forge relationships. Sometimes it can take a lot longer in the East. But today, the Anand Group finds the East very interesting, not only because we have, between Maruti and Hyundai, two very prominent OEMs in India, who, of course, the OEM gives us the indication of where to look. So today, I think the East, we cannot ignore it and we all have to look at it. But Anand Group started with its first JV partner from the US. And today, still, we have, in Dana, a very strong partner. They weren't the first, but we did start with our first JV there. And today, I'd like to, discuss a little bit about how in the US it is actually so much easier for any, I would say, MSME to go there and to be talking about a JV or a technical license. You cannot underestimate the benefit you have of language and the benefit of many cultural associations that could be similar. I think it's definitely a market to explore if for someone of interest. I also think at the end of the day, for any organization wanting to be in a technical license relationship or in a JV relationship, or I'll go further to say even look for exporting to that market. Actually, the criteria is all the same. You have to have good governance, very transparent operating systems, and a professional management element. Because for any of those topics, actually to cover them, you require to have those things for your company. And I think that is the baseline for really what Anand Group has been able to do and what we continue to do in the future. As far as running the joint ventures go, we are very active in India, but we over time evolved to also realize how important it is not just that we get technical support, but we get good practices and management support from our JV partners. We don't see it as a turf war. We see it as bringing two great partners together to run the companies. For Anand Group, it was never a matter of yielding or going back on I would say even the shareholding pattern. We don't mind sometimes not being the majority shareholder. Maybe that's also unusual for many Indian families who would go with the notion that to have control they must have majority. That has not been our belief. Our belief has been through relationship and through a good professional management with, yes, a very strong I would say agreement in place on certain parameters. We can be really good partners together irrespective of who holds majority. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kavan.
thank you so much, Anji. But it would be great if you can, share a little bit about the ups and downs, and especially, of working with a North American joint venture partner. I'm sure in this long history there must have been certain, I would say, difficult times. So anything that you would like to, share on their learnings and experience that came out of those kind of episodes.
Yeah, sure. I think, as I said, for Anand Group, partnership is our cornerstone, but our second cornerstone would be people. So through this journey, what we've realized is, we always stay the same on the Anand Group side. From my father to myself to the rest of our team at a senior level remains very, very constant. And we've always made that, I would say, clear that we would try and have a very constant face for our partners. But that's not what we've always found on the other side. We've seen what I call the revolving door of 3 to 4 years where the CEO keeps changing. And then, of course, we have to reset those expectations and boundaries and relationship and forge new relationships. And in that, sometimes you can have a breakdown of communication or you can have a breakdown of synergy. And that becomes very tiresome and also can have an effect on the business and the alignment. So just a couple of ways that we have tried over the years to work over those issues. We've always tried to have some middle management and senior management go for deputation to those home countries and immerse themselves within our partners, either in their home country or in another geography where they might send them, both on a technical side, but even on a management side, and come back after 3 years to be back within that JV itself. And that has some degree of synergy that it cements through the organization structure. The second way is that, the board members, both from their side and our side, are very valuable and spend time together, and also go further into the relationship, know each other well. We started a practice of doing two board meetings in the home country, like in this case, North America, and two in India, in which we made sure that we would travel both ways, so that our partners would come and visit us here and see what we bring to the table, and we would go and visit them there and make sure we see more than one stakeholder from that side. And of course, in this process, even when I was much younger, I would always travel with my father, get to know the people, and similarly now both, our professionals and I do the same, and that is something we made a very large effort on. Further to which, I think we always kept the management, the operating management team at the company level, at the really operating level, and keep the partnership issues and shareholder issues from a governance point of view at, I would say, the chairperson slash, CEO, group CEO level. So they would not be confused, and the operating management would not have to be getting involved with anything of that nature. That would keep this a very clean break between the two subjects. And, I'll go further to say we never really bring those issues into a board meeting. They always discuss try to be resolved pre-board, even if that takes some effort. So, I mean, these are some little tricks of the trade, but those are things that we have done successfully all these years, and we've always tried to keep them a little separate.
I think that those are great insights, Anjali. But with so much technology coming in, right? New technologies coming in, and the whole case disruption. How do you see, opportunities to form more joint ventures for Indian companies? And do you see, especially North American companies, interested in partnering further with India?
Yeah, I think that's a very poignant question. Certainly, things have changed, and you're right. With India opening up the way it has and being, such a large automotive base now, it's become very attractive to all geographies to be here. In some cases, now the larger companies don't feel the need for a partner here. That too has happened, and we must recognize that. So I think, taking from what some of my other colleagues have said here today, the single most important thing will be working through your OEMs going forward, because they are the ones who will lead you to what the gaps in technology are, or what the gaps in their sourcing is. And as mentioned earlier, they will look for a China plus one, or they will look for their tier ones localizing further and having their tier twos and tier threes also form such relationships. So irrespective of wanting to be a system supplier or a tier one supplier, we don't think at all badly of looking at being a tier 2 supplier or tier 3 supplier, and forging those relationships to really supply to a strong tier 1, because many of the tier 1s are already here, as we know. So I think it is really key that the OEM is the one that you have a conversation with, or in this particular case, MSME can even speak to the tier 1s who may be looking to localize. And I still think there's many opportunities there, especially in the forging space, and also in the backward integration on electronic space.
Okay, that's a very interesting insight. So let me now open it up for the final round of questions, and we have maybe another 10 minutes to go for this panel discussion. So let me come to you, Vishal. You shared some very interesting perspective on how you built the whole growth story. Way back, starting way back in 2000 and so on. But share with us a little bit about how do you look at the future, and what were some of the failures? I mean, we talked about the success stories, but what are some of the failures that you had to go through while you were building the business? And what would be almost like some of the do's and don'ts that you would like to share with the ACMA community as they look at the North American market? Vishal?
Okay. Um, so I'll say, looking at the future, I feel COVID has shaken up things, and You have logistics, which is a nightmare. You don't get containers. You pay so much for containers. So I think made in USA is going to be an even more successful strategy. And we have a plant there. We can see an increased level of interest. And another thing I'll add is our product is an engineered product. It's not a build to print. So the value of having a US operations where I have a quality manager, I have an engineering manager, a plant manager, they can support the customers. That has a great value. I can tell you that sometimes my India plant supplies better quality products to the US. We supply from India and from the US. But that confidence level that the US customers have on a US facility with the entire infrastructure is much more. So I think yes, the going forward things look very bright for people who already have a footprint in the US. Some of the failures, I think, or mistakes. One of them was, as I said, we are an assembly plant there, and we buy a lot of components and assemble them. So the painless way was to switch our suppliers, start buying from India. We used a supplier base for our India company. The products were quite similar, but a lot of our products got rejected. It took 2 or 3 years for people in India to understand uh, a lot of these components had been used in house, so they were just deviating them functionally. And our Indian company was at not such a maturity level as it is today. So it took a few years and setbacks, and there was some loss of confidence in the India made product, even in our own facility. So yeah, that's a mistake that set us back. We should have gone slower. Another mistake I made was, I kind of pushed one of my managers to fire somebody who I felt was not performing well. So yes, I think once you're sitting remotely, you and I don't see myself as a kind of a dictator, but I used to think I'm a very participative CEO. I listen to everyone, but I saw my skills getting challenged. Uh, as Mr. Goyal said, it's a very equal society. There's no hierarchy. If they don't like what you're saying, they will not listen to you, and it's a mistake to force your opinion. Just some of the do's and don'ts. I guess the do's is I would strongly encourage people, even SMEs, to go to the US, invest. As we've all heard today, it's a large market, it's English speaking. Uh, the cultural differences are huge. Uh, I don't think we have time to go there. But I'll just say, watch. If somebody is serious, watch The Office, the US series. It's 9 episodes. It'll give you a lot of insight. And you have this show called American Factory about how a Chinese company went there. And the Chinese chairman says, I'd like to quote this, that Americans are confident. He's telling his Chinese employees, super confident. They're confident from the time they're born. So they need a lot of praise and appreciation. And that's very true. We don't do that in India, unfortunately, and we should. So yes, do follow. Respect the culture differences. That's a big do. Um, it Don't send just your trusted people from India. They will not be able to fit in to the team there. It's not. I don't think that's a good idea at all. And finally, I'll say COVID has made you have all our calls on Teams now. We're doing a lot of calls on the phone. I was sitting here in India. There were 6 people in a conference room there. It's kind of an outsider now. Teams has made so much easier to participate. So it makes even more sense today. But I'll stop there and thanks, Kaman.
Thank you, Vishal. Let me move to Nishit. One final comment. We have about 8 9 minutes to go. But Nishit, any do's and don'ts that you would like to share with the ACMA community in the next, maybe if you can wrap up in the next couple of minutes, please.
Yeah, I'll just go really quick at it. Most of the time, any company, when he is looking at an opportunity in the US, specifically in brownfield, they concentrate on customers. They interact and they communicate with the customers to understand their plan and the growth. But they need to give equal importance to talk and understand the suppliers of that plant. The kind of relationship a supplier has with a US plant is little different than the way a relationship of a supplier with an Indian operation plant. So they need to give equal importance to the supplier. At the same time, as stated in the back, they also need to talk and understand the expectations of their banking partners. So an overall a 360-degree view on that opportunity is needed, and not get really bogged down or myopic by looking at only the growth opportunity or the customer calling them to be there. So take a holistic 360-degree view before you take a step towards that.
Thanks,
Thank you, Coach.
Nishit. I think those are fantastic words of wisdom, and thanks for sharing with the ACMA community. Moving to you, Tarunji, how do you see the future? And for companies who are willing to take the risk and participate in North America, what do you think are the two or three things which one should focus on? And to make it interesting, maybe it will be better if you don't repeat what others have already said. So, yeah, over to you, Tarunji.
Yeah. So all I will say is that I had heard that America is the land of opportunities, and it truly is. I mean, out of my experience, I feel it's really taught us a lot, and it has given us a lot in terms of business and growth. Uh, I think it's very important for people who are currently not supplying to North America to find that pole position first. So for that, if your validation cycles are too long, if you are taking too long to get approved, to find a suitable partner, not think that someone is a competitor, he could turn out to be a good partner, because like I said, these are volatile times. It's important for us to build partnerships and grow, rather than just plain simple compete. So my advice to ACMA members going forward is that, okay, find that pole position, at least play in that market. There is a lot to be gained out of there, so don't miss out on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tarunji. Mr. Goyal, your views on do's and don'ts for the ACMA membership, especially with respect to North America, please. Or any other final comments from your end?
No, I would say that people should just not go to North America, because there is a lot of opportunity there. There are also enough risks. So India market is going to grow at a very massive pace. India would be the fastest growing economy for at least next decade. So there are enough opportunities in India. So you need to weigh what sort of capital you have and what sort of capital you really want to invest. And if you think you can do enough business in India, I would say, especially for MSMEs and mid-sized companies, I would say India is a better opportunity for you. But if you think you want to go to US, and many times you find that your kids don't want to stay in India, they want to go and live in US, and you want to start, I'm talking of a greenfield, and then you need to really look at go in for a newer technology, and as Anjali mentioned, or even Nishant mentioned, that have connectivity with either the OEMs or large tier ones. And it may be good for the MSMEs to be a tier 2 supplier, then try to become a tier 1 supplier straight away. And but don't get carried away, because a lot of us have gone there to US, and then we advise a lot of people to go there. I personally feel that opportunities in India are really great, and as Tata Autocom also, I have really decided to concentrate far more in India now than concentrating internationally. This is what I would like to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goyal. Anjali, our final word, any comments from your end, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think, I have to echo that because as I started with saying that, Anand Group believes in the opportunities in India and that they are plentiful and has grown over 60 years, largely with bringing best of technology to India itself. So, what I'd just like to say is that I think we can offer a cost effective solution. And if you have good systems in place, you could be a great partner to somebody as a tier one or tier two or even tier three. And really bring in and home in your own experience and expertise in the India market and your connection with the customer to provide a great partnership, but concentrate on being their partner in India. That has always been our way, and I believe that is the safer and more logical way, especially if you're connected with the partner. And I'd only just like to say that in this whole process, any help through the mentorship program we can give with a degree of, I would say, visibility to MSMEs on what it takes to put some governance processes in, or some, I would say, even process improvements in to improve during the stage. I hope the program will give that, and that the tier ones will open up and give a good hand holding to through this process. Everyone has grown over time, and I think many advisors have helped each one of us. So thank you, Kavan.
Thank you very much. And just to conclude, I think it's been a fascinating, panel discussion. And I'd like to thank all the panelists for really sharing very practical insights. I think what we discussed today was not theory, but on the ground experience. But just to summarize, North America is clearly a massive opportunity, a great opportunity. But as Mr. Goyal mentioned, it is full of risks as well. One can indeed mitigate the risk, as we saw through examples of Vishal, Tarun, and Nishit, as they've run successful businesses in North America. But you can't go there with the India mindset. You have to localize, you have to understand that while they all speak English, it's a very equal society, as was mentioned, and we can't try and manage businesses over there with our mindset. We need to empower the local leadership. We need to work with them and be in a partnership mode and focus more on growth rather than trying to do cost takeout by moving things to India. I think there was consensus that that is not a very easy thing to do and generally doesn't work. Also, building on the relationship, I think that was a very crucial point that came about. That while US is definitely very merit oriented, but giving them that local touch point and having that local connect is very crucial as we build this up. It's also a great gateway into rest of North America, and as US MCA gets implemented, we expect there will be even greater opportunities for manufacturing growth in US. So on that note, I really hope this session has been would be very useful for ACMA members who are looking at taking advantage of the North American market. And again, I would like to thank all the panelists for sharing their insights very openly and bringing up all these perspective in the spirit of cooperation and partnership in the context of our ACMA Pillar 4. So, on that note, thank you very much for your patient listening, and it's been a pleasure being part of this panel. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.